Death Wish is directed by Eli Roth and stars Bruce Willis, Elizabeth Shue, Vincent D'Onofrio, and Hank, or Dean Norris. Now, this one's a remake of the 1974 film starring Charles Bronson, and here we're introduced to Paul Kersey as a hard-working surgeon and also a dedicated family man. And after there's been a brutal attack made on his family, Paul steps out for his own brand of justice. Yes, Bruce is taking out the trash again. Now, the only connection that this film has with the 1974 original is that the main characters share the same name, and that's about it. What we have here, instead of Paul being an architect as depicted in the original film, here he's a surgeon. And so I guess we've just got to accept that there are plenty of Paul Kerseys out there that are willing to step out and be vigilantes.
Yeah.
Now guys, look, before I get into this review any further, I've got to say that I am open to remakes and reboots of older films. I'm not closed-minded in any way, it's just that I tend to tread pretty carefully with them. And I guess because there's so many of them out there now, okay? If we look at films like The Departed, or perhaps Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, these are two good examples of remakes that can work really well, because quite often they're coming from a place of inspiration and creativity, and it's all there in the writing and the execution of the film, okay? As opposed to last year's Flatliners, or do you guys remember Ben-Hur from last year? No? Good. And I guess it's just one of those things where making a quick buck isn't always the best way to make a great film. So where does Death Wish sit in here, in amongst that? It's probably somewhere in the middle. The film has a pretty solid opening as we meet Paul. We find out he's a pretty dedicated, hard-working surgeon. He really cares about people's lives and he's really interested in saving lives. And he's also a great family man. And I particularly enjoyed these scenes with the family. I thought that they were great. There was a really cool scene actually with the diner where the family are hanging out, having a meal together. And the chemistry is really evident between the characters. Yes, it kind of depicts a little bit too much of a perfect American family, a little bit too Brady Bunch-esque for some people, but for me it worked, and I think the chemistry really sold it. Now, when you've got an action star veteran like Bruce Willis in your cast, it shouldn't be too difficult to get some great action scenes in your film. However, some of the straight-to-DVD schlock that I've seen Bruce in for the last few years would probably prove me otherwise. But here the action's great. It's pretty well written, pretty well shot and executed. Eli does like to get a little bit creative with some of the kills in this film. However, I felt that he was drawing a little bit too much influence from his horror inspirations, as some of the kills get a little bit too gory for my taste. But for the most part, it works well. And hey, Bruce still looks great at his age, shooting down the bad guys. And it was just great to see him on the big screen doing that. Now, some people may find the message of this film to be a little too difficult to swallow, given the current times that we live in, the very unfortunate things we've got happening around the world, like mass shootings and police brutality and things like that. And the actions that are depicted with the main character certainly raises all these sort of questions. Eli Roth doesn't spend a lot of time on this. There is a little bit of social commentary, and these scenes are really provided through radio show hosts, and these radio show hosts present different sides of the argument. But Eli basically takes a safer route with it, and it's really all about centering more on the character of Paul here rather than the bigger picture. The problem here is the character of Paul, and it's not Bruce's performance. Bruce Willis is great in this movie, and you know, I think he could personally play this character in his sleep at this point in his career, so he's great. It's mainly to do with the writing and the execution of some of these scenes. And it's mainly in the transition of this character and what this character goes through. I just didn't buy it. I had an issue from Paul becoming the good surgeon to becoming the vigilante, because it happened so quickly that after the tragedy with the family, we're not really afforded an opportunity for Bruce to really reflect upon that. And I really didn't buy that a surgeon who is so dedicated to saving people's lives would be then so quickly interested in taking people's lives. And there's a real moral dilemma there, but the character doesn't really go through anything with that. There's no inner conflict, there's no tension, there's no rage built up within the character. It just happens really quickly because Eli Roth is more interested in getting to the killings, getting to the vigilante part. And so the second half of this film just doesn't really carry the weight that it probably should.
Okay.
So there are a few issues within this film, but I can't deny that for the most part it is a pretty fun ride. And for Bruce Willis fans like myself that are waiting for a really good Die Hard movie, which we haven't had in over 20 years, this film will do its job. It's just great to see Bruce Willis on the screen shooting down the bad guys, and if you're going into the film for that, you're going to get it, and that's what I went into this film for. So I'm going to give this one 3 stars.
You killed my wife! Who else was there?
I don't know anything else.
I believe you, Joe.
So you're not gonna kill me?
No. Jack is.
So guys, what did you think of Death Wish? Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the movie, and while you're there, also let me know what your favourite Bruce Willis film is of all time. Thanks so much for watching, guys. You guys are awesome. Flick me a like and subscribe, and remember, a weekend watching movies is a weekend well spent. The problem here is not his performance as much as it is... I've got to get a drink of water. One sec.